Hey, welcome back to another riveting episode of building a RANS S21 outbound plane. The garage has been heating up a lot. We've got a heat streak going on, so my building is being pretty much confined to morning time, and then I'm doing paperwork and video content in the afternoons. In this episode of the video, I continue wiring the panel. I do some work on the shelf. I remove the shelf, put some stringers on it. I put the nut plates on the avionics, run some of the wires, and attach a few of the harnesses. And just other miscellaneous panel stuff. So this is just a continuation of the panel. Hope you get something out of it. Remember, I'm a first-time builder, so this is not instructional. This is me figuring out how to get this panel put together. So with that, let's jump into the panel wiring. My next step is I'm going to remove the shelf, and I'm going to cut some pass-throughs for my wires. I'm assuming I'm going to run them up my frame and then up the side and then create some pass-throughs for them, and I'll have to put some rubber edging on that, as well as maybe some C-clamps to let my wires come through. And I'm also going to put some stringers underneath. There's a little bit of pillowing here that I don't like, that might create a vibration. Even if I put another C-clamp back there, I might get a vibration. So I'm going to run some stringers along this back edge and along this one as well. And what else? Then I'm going to put nut plates on the back of these so that the screws will come up from the bottom into the nut plates. So these can be removed just by getting a screwdriver underneath and not having to reach in somehow into the panel area, which gets really tight after the cowling gets put on. So we'll have them screw up from underneath. And what else? I think that's it for now. Oh, then I've got to permanently mount my frame. If you remember, I put an aluminum rivet in here just to hold it, but it calls for a stainless steel. So I'm good to think that this frame can get permanently mounted. So I'll have to pull off my panel carefully, even though all the wires are run, maybe supported here somehow with a second hand, and then put some stainless steel rivets into the frame to get the frame mounted. And that's on my short list, so we'll get that. I just pulled the panel out. I'll drill these out, put stainless steel, put my panel back in, and I'm good to proceed. Okay, I've got all my holes sized up for my nut plates, and I've put in some support stringers for the back edge of that shelf to keep any oil panning or vibrating or unwanted sounds, give a little more support. And I'm ready to put the nut plates onto my instruments, and I'm ready to finish riveting this sub-panel mount. I also riveted in this radio support bar and then added some padding to it to give the radios a softer support. I'm back working on my sub panel. I didn't have this doubler riveted yet, and the holes drilled for my different cables. So on page 121, I'm following the sub panel mounting process. The directions have you rivet the throttle brace and fire extinguisher mount, which is this piece, to the top side of the sub panel, which is this piece. So that would put these two riveted together. But they don't have you drill out the holes yet. These are my throttle mixture alt air. I'm going to drill out these are 3/4 inch. When I measured my calipers, these are 3/4 inch holes. And these are, I think, 3/8. I have to remeasure. I forgot what it was. But I'm going to at least drill out those holes. I may end up having a prop control. I'm still going back and forth on whether I'm going to get constant speed or not. If that's the case, then this will end up being the 3 engine controls, and these will all be 3/4. But at least I'm going to drill them out for what I've got now, the 2 3/4 and the 3/8. And if I have to drill this one out later, I will. But I'm going to do that before I rivet it to the panel or to the sub mount. Okay, I've drilled out the 2 holes for power, mixture, and alt air. This may get drilled bigger if I go with a constant speed. Also riveted the subplate, riveted the sub panel to the fire extinguisher mount tray, and I think I'm going to run a brace from here to here just to get a little additional support. I did have to cut these a little short because of my cable runs, but I can still brace this in here and beef it up. And when I mount my fire extinguisher, I may put a doubler plate in, again, to beef up this this whole mount plate. It's pretty light aluminum. I primed a lot of the closeout parts. I think I'm going to paint them the blue color that I've got. I'm not 100% sure if I'm not going to fabric coat some of them, but I think most of them will just keep the blue paint. I really like the priming process. I used my spray gun and just a metal primer that I thin out 3:1 with paint thinner, and it does a real nice application. The paint color has its own thinning agents that you add to it, but I've had good success with it through my gun also. So I'm going to paint these next. I painted these interior parts with my two-stage paint that matches one of my exterior colors. You mix it with a hardener and an activator, and I'm disappointed with my results, and this is why I'm obviously not going to paint my exterior. I did get some splotching, and I'm not really sure what causes that. This is the sub panel for my below the panel, and that just I use a rattle can matte paint, and that went on really nicely. And then my spray gun didn't leave the finish that I wanted. I'm okay with it. It's interior parts, and I'm practicing painting, but there are some splotches on it, but that's okay. Again, that's all part of the learning process. My fire extinguisher came. It's a Halitron or a Halo fire extinguisher, which is highly recommended because it protects your instruments from a film coating that'll deteriorate both your aluminum and your instruments. So this is what a lot of computer companies use. It's a small one. It's 1.4 pounds. It's about $140 regardless of where you buy it. That gets mounted to the bottom of the sub panel. It comes with a little bracket, so I'll get that mounted before I put that in the plane. I mounted the bracket using some AM3 nuts and bolts. I had a piece of angle aluminum left over. I was going to trim it to be rectangle, but it's hidden, so I just used the scrap piece that I've got to give it some additional support. So that's all set to go into the plane. The next thing I'm doing is putting my sub panel mount into the panel frame. I had to drill out this nut screw here because the sub panel actually takes the nut screw rivet as well. So these are 3/32 nut screw rivets, and then these will be stainless steel CC42s, I believe, to put those on. Okay, I probably should have shown this a couple minutes ago, or a couple hours ago, really. I've got the nut plates on each of the shelf components, and I've screwed each of the shelf components to the shelf. And there's my GTR-20, which is the backup radio. And I attach the shelf with rubber frame clamps. And there's my extra support shim. And so the shelf is attached with the frame. And then each of the components is attached with nut plates and screwed into the shelf. The next thing I'm doing is I'm starting to attach the different harness components to the different shelf components. I decided to make some labels for the cable, and of course any box in the garage is the possession of the house cat. He's here to help me make some labels. I've spent the last few hours just running wires, rerunning them, grouping them, finding out where they go. I did attach my ground wires to the frame, and then underneath to the ground bus, which then goes through to a pass-through stainless steel bolt, which comes on this side and will get we'll get grounded to the frame. once I bring it through, I'll cut this, put a crimp on it, and ground it to the frame. So that'll be my ground for this this bus under here. Well, that's a good place to stop. That section of build took me 17.1 hours. That brings my project to date to 882.9 hours. Plugging along, not getting as much build time as I would like, but I keep saying I'm going to get better, but keep plugging along at it. So remember, dream it, just build it.